In the cold silence of deep space, a massive alien research station floated like a dark crown among the stars, its walls glowing faintly with strange blue light. Inside the great hall, the rulers of the station gathered around wide glass chambers. Where strange experiments were held today was different, because today they had captured humans from Earth creatures. They called fragile animals, not fit for survival. The aliens had taken 5 humans, 2 men, 3 women, pulling them from there. Homes without warning. Now the humans stood shivering under bright alien lights, their hands bound with glowing chains, their eyes searching the strange room around them. The aliens stood tall with scaled skin, glowing eyes, and sharp voices that cut. Like metal, they laughed among themselves, saying, "These creatures cannot endure what even our weakest soldiers face." One alien commander stepped forward, his voice echoing across the chamber. He said, "Humans are weak. They cry when they bleed. They break. When they suffer, they will not last in our trials." Another alien added with a cruel grin, "Let us show the galaxy how easily these Earth animals collapse at the first touch of real pain." The humans looked at each other. They did not speak, but their silence carried something heavy, a quiet strength that the aliens did not notice at first. The test began when the floor beneath the humans opened to reveal a chamber of freezing mist. White fog rose from the pit as machines hummed alive the temperature. Inside dropped fast, like winter storms turning into knives of ice. The aliens forced the humans into the chamber and locked the door from outside. Alien scientists gathered around their glowing screens, recording every movement, every breath inside the chamber. The cold struck instantly, cutting through clothes and flesh. The humans gasped as the temperature fell lower and lower. Frost gathered on their skin. The aliens leaned closer to the glass, waiting for screams they wanted to hear. Panic. They wanted to hear fear, but the humans did not scream. One man in the group, a tall soldier with scars across his arms, stood straight, his jaw tight, his breath turning into clouds of ice. His body shook, but he did not fall. The others followed his strength, teeth clenched, faces pale, but they refused to collapse. Minutes passed and the aliens began whispering, confused. One alien said by now they should be frozen. Another added, "Even the strongest of our kind collapse at this level of cold." Why? Are they still standing inside the chamber? One of the women bent to her knees, shaking, but the soldier placed his hand on her shoulder and whispered, "Hold on just a little longer." She looked up at him and nodded, her lips blue, but her spirit still. Burning, the cold grew sharper, cutting deeper like invisible blades, yet the humans refused to fall. The alien commander banged his clawed hand against the railing and shouted, "Increase the cold. Take it to the limit." The machines roared louder and the frost grew thicker around the humans' skin turned white. Breath slowed, hearts pounded dangerously. The alien crowd leaned forward, expecting the moment of collapse. Then, through the storm of cold, a sound broke the silence. It was a whisper, soft but clear, carried through shivering lips of the scarred soldier. He said, "This isn't pain, this is nothing." The aliens froze, their eyes wide, not believing what they had heard. Humans were not supposed to endure this. They were supposed to beg for mercy. Yet this man whispered with defiance, not weakness. His words echoed inside the chamber louder than any scream. The woman beside him straightened again, lifting her chin and staring through the glass at the aliens, as if to say, "We will not give you what you want." The alien scientists exchanged worried looks. Their data showed impossible results. Heart rate slowing, but steady, nerves stretched but unbroken. One alien muttered, "This should be killing them, but they fight against it." Another whispered, "Maybe we made a mistake bringing them here." The commander snarled, "Silence. These creatures are only delaying their end yet." Even as he spoke, his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. Minutes stretched into eternity inside the chamber. The humans' teeth chattered, their bodies shook violently, but their eyes remained sharp and alive. The soldier pressed his hand against the icy wall and forced a weak smile toward his captors, as if mocking their effort, and one by one the other humans copied him, standing straighter. Even though every bone in their body screamed for rest, their unity burned brighter than the cold outside. The aliens, watching, felt something they had not felt in centuries. Unease, the laughter died from their throats, replaced by silence that weighed heavy in the chamber. This was only the first test. But already the humans had planted a seed of fear inside their captors' hearts. What if pain was not their weakness, but their strength? What if this fragile species carried something hidden inside that no other race possessed? As the machines powered down and the freezing chamber filled with silence, the humans still stood battered but unbroken. The alien commander clenched his claws, unsure whether he had witnessed survival or the beginning of something far more dangerous. The soldier lifted his head one last time, eyes burning through frost, and though his body trembled, his voice carried again, low but certain, "This is nothing." And in that moment, the aliens, watching, felt for the first time not victory but doubt. The freezing chamber ended, but the aliens were not satisfied. Instead of fear, they had seen quiet strength, and that strength unsettled them. The humans were dragged out their bodies, shaking frost, clinging to their skin. Yet none had begged for mercy. The alien commander scowled, his pride wounded before the eyes of his people. He wanted to prove that humans were nothing more than fragile animals, so he ordered the next trial, a chamber of fire and heat so brutal that even hardened warriors of other races had collapsed within moments. The aliens pushed the humans forward into the new room. Its walls glowed red with rising temperature. Heat waves shimmered across the air, and metal panels on the floor began to burn beneath bare feet. Flames hissed to life in every corner, licking higher and hotter. The alien scientists smiled, certain that this time they would break the stubborn silence of the humans inside the chamber. The heat struck like a hammer. It crushed lungs. It burned throats. Sweat poured instantly, skin reddened. The humans gasped as the air itself turned into fire, yet they held their ground. One woman, a soldier with dark eyes, shut them tight and whispered inside her mind. Memories of her home, her mother, her promise to fight for Earth. She pressed those memories against the heat as if they were shields. Her body shook, her lips cracked, but she refused to scream beside her. The scarred soldier who had defied the cold planted his feet firm. He closed his fists until blood dripped from his palms. His chest rose and fell heavy, but he stood like a wall. Another human stumbled, falling to one knee as flames curled closer. But instead of surrender, he lifted his head and spat through dry lips, saying, "You think this is enough? We lived with fire long before you." The aliens watching frowned, expecting panic. Instead, they heard defiance. Their screens showed heart rates climbing dangerously, bodies nearing collapse, yet still no cries for mercy. The alien commander leaned close to the glass, hissing, "They cannot last much longer. Turn it higher, make the fire swallow them." The controls were adjusted, and the chamber roared brighter. Flames danced against walls. Heat swelled until metal beams began to bend the air, shimmered with deadly waves. The humans swayed, their skin, blistering eyes burning. Yet they locked their arms together, forming a circle in the center, as if each body held up the next. No one stood alone. The woman with dark eyes opened them again and stared through the fire straight at the aliens. She whispered, though her voice cracked, "This heat is nothing compared to the wars we carry inside." One alien scientist flinched at her words. Another muttered, "Impossible. No species resists this level of heat." One more whispered, "Then why do they not fall?" Minutes dragged into endless agony. The human skin burned, sweat turned to steam, blood boiled near the surface of their veins. But still they stood together, pressing shoulder against shoulder, as if their unity itself was armor. Outside, the aliens no longer laughed, their faces tight with disbelief. The commander growled louder, his voice trembling, "Increase it again. We will see their bones turn to ash." The scientists hesitated, but obeyed. The chamber screamed with violent fire. The glass shook under the force of the heat. Alarms rang, as temperatures reached levels unsafe even for the station itself. Yet inside, the humans lifted their voices together, one after another, not screaming in pain but roaring in defiance, a sound that shook the chamber more than the flames themselves. The scarred soldier forced words through scorched lips, shouting, "Is this all you have? We know fire, we know pain, we survive it every day." The roar spread from one human to the next, until it was no longer words but a storm of human will. The aliens watching fell silent, their screens filled with impossible data, showing bodies that should already be dead, still standing, still fighting. One alien whispered, trembling, "They turn pain into power." Another whispered, "This is not weakness, this is something else." The commander backed away from the glass, his eyes wide with disbelief, yet still he tried to cover his fear, barking, "They are only—" Delaying death no creature can resist forever. But in his heart, doubt cut deeper than the fire. The humans still stood, as the chamber finally powered down, flames vanishing into smoke. Their bodies were broken, burned skin, raw blood seeping from cracks. Yet their eyes still burned with the same fire they had faced their captors with. They stumbled, but none fell. They leaned on one another, moving together as one. The woman with dark eyes glared at the aliens as the smoke cleared and her words rasped. "Like steel, we are still here." And the station fell into heavy silence. Every alien knew they had just witnessed something. No data could explain a fragile species that did not break, but endured. And every moment they endured spread a deeper fear. Across the room, the humans had not been defeated. They had only shown a glimpse of what pain truly meant to their kind, and the aliens who once mocked them now felt the first spark of regret. The fire chamber should have ended the trial, but the humans had walked out of it alive, their bodies burned. Their skin cracked, their breaths shallow, yet their eyes still carried defiance. The alien commander was furious, his pride wounded again. Before his people, he shouted that pain of flesh was too simple, and that humans had cheated their way through. By clinging to one another, he demanded a new trial, one that no body could resist, because this time it would not be the body they attacked. But the mind the aliens had created machines that flooded the brain with terror illusions, crafted to break will and crush spirit. Other species lasted no more than hours before begging for release, so the humans were dragged into dark chairs in a new chamber. Heavy crowns of glowing wires were forced onto their heads. Their eyes closed and their minds were pulled into endless blackness. The aliens gathered, watching through monitors with greedy fascination, waiting for the first screams, waiting for the first collapse inside the illusion. Each human was pulled into nightmares. A soldier saw his family burning before him, flames eating everything he loved. Another saw herself alone on a battlefield, her comrades gone, her hands soaked. In blood, one by one, they faced visions designed to break the soul. Fear, despair, guilt, loss, loneliness, all sharpened like blades cutting into the deepest parts of their hearts. The aliens leaned closer to their screens, expecting the cries, expecting to watch the humans surrender. But something strange happened. Instead of collapsing, the humans fought back, not with weapons, but with memories. One soldier whispered through clenched teeth, "You cannot show me fear greater than what I have already lived." Another laughed bitterly in the middle of his nightmare, saying, "I saw war on Earth, I saw death. This is nothing new." The illusions twisted darker, throwing endless waves of suffering at them. But humans are creatures of stories and hope, and each one found an anchor in the storm. One woman remembered her child's smile. She clung to that light, no matter how much the illusion screamed to take it away. Another remembered the voice of a teacher who once said, "Pain is not the end, it is only proof you are alive," and he held that voice like a shield. The alien scientists stared at the readings, confusion spreading faster than before. Fear levels should have shattered the human minds, yet their signals showed spikes of resistance brain, waves that refused to collapse. One alien hissed, "This is impossible, they should be broken." Another muttered, "They laugh inside their pain, who laughs in the face of fear?" Then through the endless illusions, a sound echoed. The scarred soldier from the first trials let out a low chuckle inside his nightmare. He stood on a battlefield alone with enemies surrounding him. Yet instead of fear, he grinned and said to the shadows, "You think this scares me? We humans live with fear every day. It is our companion, not our master." The aliens outside froze, hearing his laughter echo through the speakers. A laughter that did not belong to the broken, but to the unbroken others, followed his example. The humans began to speak words to each other, though their minds were separated by illusions. Their voices carried like whispers through the void, one saying, "Hold on, I am still here," another saying, "They cannot break us together." The aliens did not understand how voices could carry through separate nightmares, but the humans heard each other across the darkness, their unity bleeding even into illusions. And with every word they pushed back against the machines. One woman shouted at the shadows, "I will not give you my fear." Another whispered calmly, "You cannot take what is already part of me." Humans did not shatter under the weight of nightmares. They turned those nightmares into fuel. The illusions cracked images breaking apart until the machines hissed alarms. The aliens scrambled, shouting. It cannot be they resist the code itself. Their brains are adapting to fear as if it were just another kind of pain. The commander slammed his clawed hand against the controls, shouting, "End the test." But it was too late. The machines sparked and failed, shutting down as smoke filled the chamber. The humans opened their eyes, breathing hard sweat dripping down, but their spirits untouched. They looked around at each other, and even in exhaustion they smiled small, broken smiles. But smiles. That spoke louder than words. The scarred soldier lifted his head toward the observation deck, staring directly at the commander, and rasped with a rough laugh. "You think fear is your weapon, but for us, fear is a teacher." The aliens around the commander shifted uncomfortably, some whispering that perhaps they had gone too far, others whispering that maybe humans were not the fragile species they once believed. The commander barked silence, but in his heart he felt the first crack of fear, not for the humans' suffering, but for their survival, because survival meant defiance and defiance meant something. The galaxy had not prepared for a species that refused to break in body and refused to break in mind. The trial was supposed to shatter them, but instead it had only proven something dangerous, that pain, whether of flesh or of thought, was not their weakness but their strength. And the aliens watching began to regret even more the choice to test the creatures they once mocked as weak, because now those same creatures were beginning to look like the most dangerous beings they had ever seen. The illusions ended, but the chamber did not feel like victory. The aliens had wanted screams, they had wanted surrender. Instead, they had heard laughter inside the storm of nightmares, and that laughter haunted them as the humans were dragged out, their bodies weak, their faces pale, yet their eyes still burning. The alien commander clenched his fists, furious that every trial had failed to break them. He ordered something harsher, something that no unity or memory could save. The next test would push them beyond all measure, he declared. Increase the pressure, make the pain unbearable, make them watch each other collapse so that their spirit dies together. The humans were chained once more inside a room where the walls shone with cruel machinery, glowing spikes, whirring gears and wires ready to deliver endless torment. This chamber was designed to shatter the body faster than it could heal its flaw. Hummed with vibrations sharp enough to cut nerves, the aliens activated it, and the trial began. At first, it was shockwaves searing through bone muscles, tearing beneath the skin one by one. The humans fell to their knees, gasping, their voices strained with pain, but still they refused to beg. The scarred soldier pressed his teeth together, blood dripping from his lips, yet he looked at his captors with eyes that refused to break. The woman, with dark eyes, leaned against another human, whispering, "Hold on, stay with me. We do not fall alone." The aliens watched, curious to see which one would fail first. Then it happened. One of the younger men stumbled, his body shaking violently, his chest rising shallow, his eyes rolling back. He tried to stand, but his legs no longer obeyed. His voice cracked. "I cannot hold on longer." His words were soft, almost lost in the chaos. Then he collapsed, hitting the floor with a sound that echoed heavier than any scream. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Even the machines seemed to pause. The other humans froze, staring at their fallen brother. The aliens erupted into laughter. "At last one has fallen," the commander hissed. "At last we see weakness." Yet as the humans knelt around the body, there were no tears of surrender, no broken cries. Instead, they gathered close, pressing their hands against him, whispering, "Not goodbye, but words of strength." One woman whispered, "You are not gone, you are part of us." Another whispered, "We carry you." The scarred soldier knelt, placing his hand on the man's chest, whispering, "You did not fall alone." The aliens stared, confused. This was not how other species reacted normally when one fell. The rest broke faster, fighting for themselves. But these humans mourned differently. They pulled strength from loss, as if death itself was fuel. One alien scientist whispered, "They do not see death as defeat. They see it as bond." The commander snarled, "Nonsense. Death weakens them, it divides them." But even as he spoke, he watched with unease, because the humans were not divided. They lifted their heads together, eyes sharper than before, and the scarred soldier looked through the glass, his voice hoarse but steady. "You think this breaks us? No, it binds us stronger." His words carried across the chamber like a blade slicing the alien laughter. The machines roared again, increasing the torment. But the humans now bore it differently. Each cry of pain was not isolation, but shared. Every groan met with a hand gripping another's arm. Every shiver answered with whispered strength. Their circle tighter, their unity unbroken. The fallen body lay among them, yet his memory filled their stance. The aliens grew uneasy again. One scientist muttered, "When they lose one, they rise harder." Another answered, "Perhaps death makes them stronger, not weaker." The commander slammed his claw on the console, growling, "They are only delaying what cannot be avoided. No creature survives forever," but doubt hung heavy in the chamber. The humans shook violently, their bodies shredded by pain, yet their eyes carried the fire of the one they lost, and that fire would not go out even as they staggered. They pressed on, leaning on one another, dragging each step forward. Not alone, never alone. The test ended, but not because the aliens chose mercy. It ended because their machines began to fail under the strain of resistance screens sparking with impossible data, showing humans enduring past the limits of design. Smoke rose, alarms rang, and the chamber powered down in chaos. The humans collapsed to the floor, breathing hard, bruised, broken, bleeding, but not destroyed. They pulled one another up and stood again, their fallen brother carried between them. Though lifeless, his weight seemed to make them heavier in body, but stronger in spirit. The alien commander glared furious, yet his voice cracked. When he shouted, "Remove them from my sight," the humans were dragged out, but they did not look defeated, even carrying death among them. They looked like warriors carrying a banner that said, "We do not fall alone." And in the silence that followed, the aliens who once mocked the fragility of humans now whispered to themselves, "Perhaps we were wrong to test them. Perhaps we are the ones in danger, for every trial we give only makes them something more, something we may not be able to control." The chamber of pain ended, but the memory of the first human's death lingered like a shadow across the alien station. The body had been carried out, yet the fire of his sacrifice still burned inside the survivors. Instead of breaking them, it had made them more dangerous, and the aliens watching felt the change in the air. Whispers spread through the halls. Scientists muttered that perhaps humans were not weak, perhaps they were different soldiers from other worlds came to see the strange, captives who defied pain, and some even asked quietly, could they be turned into weapons? The commander denied such talk, declaring they were only animals delaying their inevitable collapse. But even in his voice, there was doubt. His orders grew harsher, as if he wanted to prove not just to his people, but to himself that humans could be broken across the galaxy. Messages traveled fast. News leaked from the station about the endurance of Earth's creatures. Traders whispered in hidden markets. Rulers of distant empires asked questions. What kind of species laughs in the face of fear? What kind of fragile bodies survive fire and ice? What kind of minds turn nightmares into strength? Some began to fear them. Others began to see value in them, and soon the humans who were once mocked as prey now became a subject of dangerous interest inside their cells. The survivors felt this shift. They saw the way guards no longer laughed, but watched with careful eyes. They saw the way scientists no longer mocked, but took notes with trembling claws. They saw fear growing where arrogance once lived. The scarred soldier sat with his back against the wall, whispering to the others, "They are afraid of us, and fear is a weapon," one woman asked softly, "but what good is fear if we are still in chains?" He turned his head and answered, "Chains are nothing. If minds are free, they will regret bringing us here," and the words sank into every heart, making them sit straighter. Despite wounds, the commander still sought to end their defiance. He ordered a new trial, one unlike any before. He declared, "If humans survive this last test, then we will admit they are more than animals. But if they fall, their legend dies with them." The scientists prepared a chamber, whispered about in fear, a place that no living being had ever endured. The survivors were told of it, though the aliens mocked them, saying it would be their grave. Yet, instead of terror, the humans shared a glance, and one woman whispered, "Then let it be the place where they learn who we truly are." The aliens were unsettled by her tone. She did not speak as prey, but as judge and jury. That night across the station, rumors spread faster than fire soldiers, whispered that the humans might survive. Even the impossible, some said. If they endure this, then they cannot be slaves, they can only be enemies. Others whispered, It would be better to end them now, before the trial even begins, but fear of dishonor held them back, because if they killed, the humans without proof it would show weakness before the galaxy. So they prepared the final test, and as the machines were built stronger and crueler, the humans sat together in silence, their burned hands linked, their tired eyes closed, but not. In surrender they rested as warriors before battle, carrying in their hearts the memory of the one they lost, carrying in their veins the fire of survival. The turning point had come, and even the aliens who once laughed now stared with unease, because every step, every trial, every scar had only sharpened these creatures into something beyond their control. And when the doors opened, to lead them into the final chamber, the scarred soldier rose first. His voice, rough but steady, telling his captors, "You wanted to know how much pain humans can take, now you will learn." And as his words echoed through the station, even the commander felt the weight of regret pressing down on him, because in that moment he realized the trials had not revealed weakness. They had created something far stronger than he had ever imagined. And though the humans still walked in chains, they carried themselves like conquerors, not prisoners, and the galaxy itself seemed to wait, holding its breath for what would come next. The doors to the final chamber opened with a hiss, and the humans were pushed inside. The room was vast, filled with machines designed not for one form of torment, but for all forms at once. The walls glowed red with heat, the floor pulsed with crushing, gravity that bent even metal beams. The ceiling blazed with white light, bright enough to blind, and from hidden panels came a scream of endless sound so loud it shook the bones. This was not a test of one pain, but of every pain combined, a place where no species had survived more than a heartbeat. The alien commander stood tall before his people, declaring this will be their end. This will prove they are only flesh, and nothing more. The humans staggered as the gravity pressed down, forcing them to their knees. The heat scorched their skin. Their ears rang with unbearable noise, and the blinding light made their eyes water blood. But still they pressed close together, using each other as anchors. One woman screamed in pain, but another gripped her arm, shouting through the noise, "Stand with me, do not fall." The scarred soldier forced himself to his feet, his legs shaking as if the weight of the world itself was pressing down. Yet he lifted his head, eyes burning through the white. Blaze and roared louder than the sound itself. "We do not break." The aliens leaned forward, stunned at the sight, their screens flashing warnings, heart rates peaking, nerves pushed past all safe limits. Yet the humans remained alive. Their bodies staggered, forward step by step, as if daring the chamber to crush them. The scientists whispered among themselves, "This is not possible. Their bones should be shattering, their organs failing." Another hissed, "Then why do they still rise inside the chamber?" The humans bled from their ears. Their lips cracked, their skin blistered, yet their eyes carried fire. One woman fell flat, her body trembling as if the gravity would crush her heart. But before she could collapse fully, the others grabbed her arms, lifting her together. They shouted at her, "You will not fall alone." She looked at them through blood and tears and nodded, pushing herself back up with their strength. The chamber grew hotter, brighter, heavier. The sound turned sharper, yet instead of silence, there came a roar, a human roar rising from broken throats. Not of pain, but of defiance, the scarred soldier screamed words that shook the room. "Is this all you have? We are human. We rise from fire. We rise from ice. We rise from fear, and pain cannot destroy us." The roar spread, the others shouting with him, their voices carrying even through the endless sound so that the aliens outside could hear. Not screams of agony, but the terrifying chorus of a species that refused to die, the commander's. Claws trembled, his face pale. He shouted, "Raise it higher, burn them, crush them, blind them." The machine surged at his command, heat blasting brighter, the floor shaking as gravity doubled, light stabbing deeper into human eyes, noise slamming harder into skulls. Yet the humans still stood swaying, breaking yet unbroken. One soldier's knees snapped under pressure, but he still forced himself upright, using his comrade's shoulders. One woman's vision failed completely, turning her world into blackness, but she still gripped the hand beside her, refusing to let go. The aliens outside could hardly breathe, watching what no mind could explain. One whispered, "They endure beyond the limits of flesh." Another said they turn suffering into strength, and a third whispered, trembling, What if we are not testing them? What if we are forging them? The commander roared silence, but even his own voice carried fear. The chamber screamed as if the machines themselves could not bear the resistance. Alarms began to flash, warning of critical overload. Yet still the humans roared together, one final cry echoing through the station. We do not break. The lights shattered. The sound cut. The gravity faltered and the heat died as the systems collapsed, smoke filling the control room. The final test had failed, not because the humans fell, but because the machines themselves could not keep up. The doors opened with a hiss, and out stumbled the survivors, bloodied, blind, burned, broken, but alive. They leaned on each, other barely standing yet in their posture. Was no surrender, only defiance. The scarred soldier lifted his head, staring at the aliens, his voice a whisper, yet louder than thunder. This is what it means to be human. The silence that followed was heavy. Every alien staring not at fragile animals, but at something far more dangerous. And for the first time they regretted not the test itself, but ever thinking humans were weak at all. The final chamber lay in ruins, its machines smoking, its lights shattered, and its silence heavier than any scream the humans stumbled out, half blind, half broken. Their bodies torn, but their spirit unshaken. They leaned on each other, dragging feet. Across the floor, their faces pale, their breaths shallow, yet their eyes still burned with the same fire that had carried them through ice, fire, nightmares, and torment. The aliens gathered in the great hall fell into whispers, their laughter gone, their arrogance crushed. None could deny what they had seen. Fragile flesh had endured what no other species had survived. Before the alien commander tried to hold his voice strong, but it cracked as he shouted, "Enough! They are only delaying death." This proves nothing, yet his words did not carry the weight they once had. His soldiers no longer laughed at the humans. They watched them with quiet fear, some even with respect. One scientist whispered, "If they survived this, then they cannot be slaves." "They can only be enemies," another muttered. "Then we are the fools for bringing them here." The scarred soldier lifted his head, though his face was bleeding, his body trembling. He met the gaze of his captors and said in a hoarse whisper, "You wanted to know how much pain humans can take. Now you regret asking." The words sank into every corner of the station. Heavier than the broken machines, the humans gathered close, lifting the body of the one they had lost earlier, carrying him with quiet honor. They did not see themselves as victims, but as survivors, as warriors who had proven their kind before the galaxy. The commander's claws shook as he turned away, muttering, "Remove them before more shame falls upon us." But it was too late, because the shame had already spread like fire across his people. The story of human defiance could not be contained. Guards whispered to soldiers, soldiers whispered to traders, traders whispered to rulers. Soon the legend spread across stars that humans had survived the impossible, that they had looked into the face of endless pain and laughed, and the galaxy listened. Some races trembled in fear, wondering what would happen if humans were ever freed. Others saw hope, imagining an ally that could endure where all else failed. But for the ones who had tested them, there was only regret. Regret that they had revealed to the universe the secret strength of humanity. Regret that they had mocked the one thing that made humans more dangerous than any weapon, their ability to suffer and still rise. The humans returned to their cells, but they no longer sat as prisoners. They sat like conquerors, waiting for chains to rust. One woman whispered softly to the others. They thought pain would break us, but pain is what shaped us. The scarred soldier nodded, his face grim but proud, and answered, "Let them fear us, let them remember this day, because now the galaxy knows what it means to be human outside the walls." The aliens argued, some said destroy them before their legend grows stronger. Others said killing them now would only confirm the fear that humans cannot be defeated. And so the captors found themselves trapped by their own mistake. For every moment the humans lived was another moment. The galaxy whispered of them another moment. Fear spread wider. The commander paced in silence, his mind heavy with regret. His station, once a place of pride, now stained with the memory of fragile creatures who endured beyond reason. He looked once more at the humans, and though he would never say it aloud, he knew he had seen something he would never forget. Not weakness, but the most dangerous strength of all, resilience. And as the humans sat together, broken but smiling, their eyes burning, Through the bars, it was clear to every alien watching that this was not the end of a failed experiment. It was the beginning of a new fear, a fear that would haunt them forever, because they had learned too late that pain was not the downfall of humanity. Pain was their weapon, and the galaxy would regret ever discovering it.